This video will discuss how to construct a range control chart in Excel. The data that will be used are 40 samples of 10 bags per sample of bags of concrete mix weighed each hour during a 40-hour week. The first step to construct the range control chart is to calculate the sample range for each sample. The sample range for each sample is the maximum value in the sample minus the minimum value in the sample. Once this is entered, the sample range can be copied to all the samples. In this case, it's important to note that the samples are listed by row, and there are 40 total samples. Once we've calculated the sample range for each sample, we want to calculate the average sample range. This value is usually denoted by R bar. We would use the average function and then highlight all of the sample ranges. Next, we'll put the center line in a column so that we can graph the control chart. The center line is simply the average sample range. We'll reference the average sample range with an absolute reference so that it can be copied down the worksheet. And when we graph the chart in Excel, this will, in effect, make this a straight line. Next, we need to look up two constants that are needed to create the control limits for the range control chart. The constants are called D3 and D4. These are listed for various sample sizes in the table of factors for control charts in the Operations Management textbook. In this case, it's important to note that the sample size within each sample is 10. So this is the value for the sample size we need to look up in the table of factors for control chart limits. For sample size of 10, D3 is 0.223 and D4 is 1.777. The lower control limit for the control chart is simply D3 times the average range, R bar. We will use an absolute reference for each value and then copy these down the chart. The upper control limit for the range control chart is D4 times R bar, which is the sample range, average sample range. Now that we've got all four columns calculated, creating the control chart within Excel is easy. We highlight the labels for these four columns and all of the data. Because the data is the same for the center, lower control limit, and upper control limit, these will just create straight lines on the control chart. With the data highlighted, we go to Insert, select the Line Chart option, and typically select the second option down on the left. Click on the title and change the title of the chart. The chart is most easily viewed if we right-click in the white space, select Move Chart, and place it in a new sheet. This is how the range control chart appears. There are no points outside of the control limits on this chart. The control limits are the gray and yellow lines. However, we do see a recurring pattern that occurs each day in the data. The range, sample range, begins with a low value and then increases throughout each day, up to hour 8. What the range chart shows is that there's a pattern in the variability of the weights of the bags that seems to change over time and recurs each day. This is definitely a pattern that we would want to investigate. And we can also pick up this pattern with the runs test that will be discussed later.